Hey Tegan, what's in the bag? It's the show where I come home from the comic book store and we look through my bag of comics because, say it with me, folks, yes, I spend too much money on comic books. If you like this show, if you like any of my shows, I'd like to recommend you take a look at my Patreon. There's tons of writing, decades worth of my writing for you to download immediately. If you like anything I do, that's how you show your appreciation. But for the time being, let's get down to brass tacks here and talk about this new Batman Dark Age book by Mike Allred. Now, I've been buying this. I'm stacking it up. I haven't read it yet because I'm assuming it'll probably read better in one piece when I sit down to go through it. Maybe I'll end up pitching it to the journal. Maybe I'll end up reading it on the TikTok at some point here. But I know I'm going to like it because I like Mike Allred, and I especially like Mike Allred when he's working on, big two superhero stuff. I really think that brings out the best in him. Wasn't always a big fan of Madman, certainly, or his other, creator-owned books, which could be hit or miss with me. But I definitely like his instincts when it comes to drawing the big guns, so to speak. So this is a companion piece to his recent Superman limited series that he did a couple years ago with the same writer. It's Mark Russell. I don't know if it's a companion piece plot-wise or even thematic-wise. I just know he did a Superman book. Now he's doing a Batman book with the same writer. Maybe he will turn around and do a Wonder Woman book when he's done. How wonderful would that be? And then we'd have all three of them right on the shelf. Three Mike Allred books like that. But I'm sure I'm going to love it when I sit down to read it. So let's flip through it here, see what's going on. It's, as I say, Mike Allred being colored by his wife, Laura Allred, as usual, Team Supreme, Mark Russell writing, Dave Sharp lettering. This isn't a Black Label book, which is a slight surprise because that seems to be where they're putting most of their, creator-forward stuff lately, regardless of subject matter. But it looks great, regardless, even just flipping through it. It's a historical pageant of some kind because we're taking place in 1972 here. People are wearing 70s clothes, but it's not a Neil Adams riff, which is what you might expect from, another Batman comic touching on the 70s period. So I don't know what's going on. Oh, man. I don't know what's going on here, but it looks great. It looks fantastic. He's drawn these weird, sort of very early version of the Batman ears, like you'd expect to see in like 1939, where they actually look a bit like bat ears. So is this a Robin? This looks like he's got a Robin of some kind. They're going after the False Face Society. There's a Catwoman, if ever there was one. I like that Catwoman design. Definitely fits. Man, look at this. This is just nice. There's making fun of some pop art here. Hawking this multiverses game. Am I the only one who thinks it's weird that you got Bugs Bunny and Batman and Scooby-Doo and then Arya Stark? Like, which of these does not belong? Maybe I'm the only one. Here's the Mad Mod Hatter looks like. That's interesting choices made with that Robin costume. Looks like he's swinging into an episode of Ultraman right there. False Face Society, that's a real deep cut, not one you see very often. So we're cutting ahead. So this is a multi-time period with an old Bruce Wayne doing calisthenics in the pool. Oh my. Interesting. Interesting. Oh, and there's the Joker. Interesting. Sort of seems like taking a little bit from the Joaquin Phoenix version here. Here's that Robin Lives storyline we looked at one of the previous issues. So is Mike Allred working digitally now? I could probably find out if I looked. Sort of looks like, if I look at the background and see the detail, one of the telltale signs for people who are going digital is when you see more detail in the background than they could fit in, and you know they're using the zoom tool on their tablet. What's so funny? Local boy makes bad. I was looking through a previous issue of this, and see, like I say, just flipping through it, waiting to read the whole thing. One of the heavies in one of the previous issues was Pariah from the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which definitely caught my interest. Ra's al Ghul at the Fall of Saigon. Okay, this looks nutty. This just looks totally nutty to have an alternate history pageant like this. Not necessarily a mode that they usually go for with Batman, but definitely looks like it fits. It's interesting. If you persist, I will destroy everything you love. I will peel everything away and then crush the head. Well, there is a very Ra's al Ghul sentiment. And to be continued. I don't know how many issues this is going to be. On sale August. That'll be next month. No one's ever ready. Yeah, some of you might be waiting for the trade on that. That's a perfectly legitimate position in this day and age, I'd say. All right, so here's an interesting one for you. Underheist, number 5 from Boom. This is the last issue of a new Maria and David Lapham book. Possibly gone under the radar for some people because it's Boom. Colorist Hillary Jenkins, David Lapham doing the letters there. Again, this is one that I'm stacking up. Maybe I'll write about it for the journal. It's crime. It's a return to crime for one of the foremost crime cartoonists of his generation. If you remember Stray Bullets, which began in the mid-90s and ran sporadically since then. So certainly he's worked consistently in the crime genre and other things as well. And, if you know anything about me from anything I've written over the years, crime isn't necessarily my bag, crime comics. And that's a real shame because so many comic book creators, so many good comic book creators are absolutely enamored with crime stuff. And especially beginning around the turn of the century, you got to see the influx of creators like Bendis, Azzarello, Rucka. I'm missing lots more who came in with crime books, crime fiction as their primary influence. And I have to admit, I was completely alienated by that movement. I just do not care all that much for crime fiction, but it certainly has made a huge stamp on the comics, especially Someone is just, he's really being sassy tonight. I tried to play with him. But I guess he wants to find out about what David Lapham is doing here. So yeah, I don't know what this is about yet. I got it stacked up waiting for me to go back and read in order. But if you flip through it, it's, David Lapham doing some of the smoothest cartooning of his generation right here. There's a reason why people like this guy so much, and it's not just, nostalgia for Warriors of Plasm. Yeah, he's really good, and I freely admit that my having a tin ear for crime stuff, basically, it's a huge disadvantage, because I'll read Stray Bullets, but it feels a little bit like, eating my vegetables, eating my celery, so to speak. But man, if you like that stuff, if you like that type of, noir-influenced crime material, well, this looks like a feast for you right here. Because he's so good at it. He's so good at it. Don't know what's going on. This kid's losing it. Man, look at this. Look at this establishing shot right there. You're in the presence of a real thrilling cartoonist when their buildings are so exciting. But man, look at this. Look at this. What are you doing? All right, where was I before I was so rudely interrupted? It's so gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. Panel after panel after panel. I like these little tight panels he's doing to really bring you into this disorienting subjectivity. You're in the last passages of this tight crime story where everything's getting more and more stressful. So of course, seen through the protagonist's subjectivity, everything feels like the walls are closing in. That's excellent. Excellent cartooning here. Oh, wow, that's cool. That's cool. My goodness. My goodness. That's grody. Looks like this mastermind here is into some sort of demonic bunko. My goodness. Yep, this is just one you need to go check out. Especially if you're not, squeamish about crime stuff like I am. I think this is up a lot of people's alleys. I wonder why he's working with Boom, not Image or Dark Horse or Oni for that matter. I wonder why. There's probably a very good reason. The end. There you go. Amory Wars. Don't know what that's all about. Oh, is this still... Are they still doing the Coheed and Cambria books? Man, that seems like that's been going for a while. This Hello Darkness thing. We may very well look at this, actually. And we looked at an issue with this. Yeah, I guess I'm buying a lot of Boom lately. They're getting decent artists, decent writers. Of course, I'll pick them up and I am going to be picking this up. Stephanie Phillips by herself would attract my attention, but this is a must buy because this Goran Sujuka fella, who's this Red Before Black that's coming out. I haven't seen the first issue yet, but I think it's coming soon. I'm just really looking forward to this because I love this guy's art. Absolutely love it. If you have not read Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal, you need to go back to do that. They just did a Kickstarter for a collected, like, deluxe edition of that. Maybe that means there'll be a sequel in the works soon. I really hope so. I like that guy's work. I'll pick it up anywhere that I see it. More of these Keanu Reeves books. Got Salvador Larroca working on them now. With Jason Aaron's the man of the hour. Wouldn't have thought it, because Jason Aaron's been around for a while, but it seems like he's having a big moment after he had his big Avengers run, where everyone said that it just didn't go the distance, and then suddenly he gets out of that, and he's getting all the big gigs again. Go figure. Well, speak of the devil. Here's what I was just looking at an ad for. This Hello Darkness book, because we are living in the era of the return of the horror anthology. After decades, literally like 4 decades, almost my entire life, horror anthologies have been DOA. After House of Mystery, House of Secrets, The Unexpected, Ghosts, all died from DC in the early 80s. They were replaced as DC's horror line by, Swamp Thing and the Proto-Vertigo stuff. So the conventional wisdom for decades has been that with the death of the newsstand, there was no traction possible for really any kind of anthologies, but especially the horror anthologies just didn't have any purchase whatsoever on the market. And then suddenly, I think it was a gradual thing that just shifted over recently to being a really big deal. And suddenly, horror anthologies are the hot ticket. This book got a big push. It's got a huge pile of big creators on it. Garth Ennis, Becky Cloonan, James Tynion IV, Jude Ellison Doyle, Steve Orlando. I'm just names on the first issue here. So this is number 1. I don't know if it's a limited series, if it's going to be a new ongoing. No idea. All I know is that it's got a lot of really good people on it, and I've really liked some of the horror anthologies that have come out in recent years. They did a couple runs of Creepshow recently from Image, because there was a Creepshow revival on one of the streaming services. I didn't see any of it, but I picked up the comics because they all had really good people working on them. And it was all fun, a definite sort of, if you've seen the original Creepshow movie, it's a sub-EC, tribute vibe. And they just had good creators doing, kind of schlocky, intentionally schlocky, fun horror stuff that I really enjoyed the hell out of. I think 2 series worth. Hopefully they do another one. So clearly I am not the only one who is enjoying all the horror anthologies. And I think the way the industry is functioning now is probably the best setup for anthologies you could have, because the best creators working are simply not laying down tracks on extended monthly runs on DC and Marvel stuff like they used to, because they're not getting paid what they're worth to do monthly comic books, and this is a problem throughout the industry. So a lot of the bigger creators are working more in limited series and anthology pieces, and even at Marvel at DC, they're both publishing a lot more anthologies now. And chances are good, if you pick up one of their anthologies, you might see a really decent creator who is probably not going to get shanghaied into doing, a monthly book, but can do, a storyline in, one of their, Venomverse or, Pride anthologies or anything like that. So first up, we got Jude Ellison Doyle, Letizia Catanici, colors by Alessandro Santoro. Contagious. That looks fun. Even, Archie. Archie's putting out a lot of anthologies lately. It just seems to be suddenly, after years and years and years of the market saying, nope, nope. Go back and look at Vertigo. Go back and look at Vertigo in the late 90s, early 2000s. They tried. They put out a couple different attempts at like Flinch. Flinch was a horror anthology. They did a Strange Adventures sci-fi book. A few more limited series with great, like fantastic creators. Dead on the vine. No one was looking to buy them. I Can't Take You Anywhere by Hack. Well, this looks interesting. This looks interesting. Oh, just a couple pages. Oh, just a page. See, now that's fun. You can get a guy in to do just a single page or a pinup. This is a Tula Lotte pinup. She's doing something a bit different here. Stay in Your Lane by Dave Cook and David Cousins. Colors by Angel de Santiago. Bowling-themed horror with interesting color work. Yeah, and nothing's long enough to outstay its welcome. This looks like it's James Tinian IV, so that means it's Something is Killing the Children story, and I know nothing at all about this franchise. When I came back from my few years sabbatical, I just knew that this series was everywhere, selling massive amounts of copies. They don't have a TV show or a movie for it yet, but it really has to be inevitable, considering just how many copies of this series they have sold, how famous the look of it. I know nothing about it, and yet I can tell you instantly what the characters look like, because it's very indelible art they've had, especially on the covers. So yeah, horror in general has had a really strong few years in comics. No idea what's going on there. I'm sure I'll read it. It'll be my first experience with that franchise. What's this? This looks interesting. The Siren by Sarah Anderson. That's fun. I like this one a lot. What is this? Steve Orlando, A.L. Kaplan. Colors Marissa Louise. Letters Jody Troutman. All these people I follow on Twitter. I think I've said before, you can tell I'm old, because the first few times I saw Steve Orlando's name on a comic book, I was thinking, wait a minute. Joe Orlando's dead. And then I opened the book and I say, oh, it's Steve Orlando. But yeah, fun stuff. Interesting. Sort of looks like a P. Craig Russell influenced line work here. Hello, Darkness. The War, Part 1. Garth Ennis, Becky Cloonan, Tamara Bonvillain, Pat Brousseau letters. There you go. Boom. 4 names to get you to pick up this comic, even if everything else was, even if every other page in this book was blank. That's a creative team to get you in the store. I'm thrilled. I'm tickled to see Becky Cloonan drawing again. I've been a huge fan and a huge supporter, a booster of hers, basically since Demo came out. And I was excited to get every issue of Demo because her work was so exciting and so interesting. And I understand that she's had a lot of problems with her art in recent years, and I've been really happy to see her drawing again. She drew some pages. She drew half of the Somna book with Tula Lotte that I did a write-up for the journal, and she's drawing this, and just look at how good this is. Look at how good this is. You want to talk about Modern Master right here. And, Garth Ennis. That right there, solid gold, 5-star creative team, if ever there was one. Oh, and we're talking about the war. Oh. Actual meaty subject matter in a horror mag. Well, that's Garth Ennis for you. Man, this just looks so good. And this looks like, is that the editor, Bryce Carlson? Yeah, one of the editors with David Marriott. A magazine like this lives or dies on the strength of an editor. Looks like they're doing a good job. This, I'm definitely coming back for the second issue of this. Maybe it's my book of the week. I don't know. Should I get a logo to put on the screen? Book of the week. All right. Speaking of horror anthologies, I definitely debated bringing this home. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a lot of patience for this quote-unquote resurrected EC. Every single person who was involved in the production of EC Comics is, almost every person is gone. They do not have anything to do with this. This is simply Oni Comics getting the trademark for EC. They're not even going back to the old titles. They don't have a new Tales from the Crypt, which seems like... I'm not saying I want them to do a new Tales from the Crypt, but I wonder why they're doing a new EC if they're not going to do a new Tales from the Crypt book. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me, the choices that they're making, considering the fact that they're paying probably a pretty penny for this EC logo, for what could be just a normal horror anthology, but we're supposed to believe, because they have paid for this trademark to go on the cover, is somehow related to the original EC. And I'm sorry, I did not just fall out of the coconut tree, as they say. So I'm not buying that. You could have put out any kind of horror anthology you wanted without this logo, and probably saved yourself a fair amount of money. I will point out, my qualms don't necessarily mean much next to the verified direct market sales, where this book here, this very same resurrected EC Comics horror anthology, is apparently selling like gangbusters. So you ask, well, why would you go to all the trouble of licensing the EC logo when you're not going to be dealing with any kind of established IP? There's no real characters to the EC IP other than the horror hosts themselves. So the question is, well, is the EC logo worth anything? Has been answered conclusively. Yes, it is worth a great deal. The brand obviously still has solid gold name recognition in the comic book industry. So I'm definitely, demonstrably wrong about that. But I think the point still stands. This is EC in name only. There is no organizational connection to the original EC Comics. For that matter, the people who have been publishing EC for years are two companies, Dark Horse and Fantagraphics. Dark Horse published color EC Archives. Fantagraphics has been publishing a series of black and white, artist-specific EC Archives. 2 different flavors of EC Archives. I think I have just about all of the Fantagraphics volumes, and I have a few volumes even of the Dark Horse color archives. And I have some of the old newsprint reprints of the EC line that they did in the late 80s and early 90s. None of those publishers are involved in this either. So what makes this an EC comic book other than someone at Oni getting out their checkbook to pay for this copyright, this trademark right here? Beats the hell out of me. I don't know. I realize I sound quite skeptical, even though I did buy the comic, because I go to the store, I groan, I pull it off the shelf, and I flip through it and it's like, okay. Phil Hester. Of course, I'm going to bring home the book with Phil Hester art, because Phil Hester is and has been one of my favorite artists since I first saw his work in the very early 90s when he did the Bloodlines annual that introduced Argus. That's how old school I go back with Phil Hester. His Swamp Thing with Mark Millar, one of my all-time favorite Swamp Thing runs. The Mark Millar run for people who hate Mark Millar, his Swamp Thing, right there. And, there's some other jokers here of some note. The aforementioned Brian Azzarello, for one. Stephanie Phillips is writing the Phil Hester story. Chris Condon, writing for Peter Krause. Jorge Forney is working with Jay Holtham. So, yeah, good names. That's why I bought the book. That's why I groaned as I rewarded what I perceived to be bad faith behavior on the part of the company here. But, my qualms don't seem to amount to a whole hell of a lot. So at the end of the day, we're just left with the evidence of the book itself to see whether or not this is worth anything. So here's a horror host. Here's the grave digger. Not the Crypt Keeper, who actually I think is still quite famous. Nice Dustin Weaver pinup here. And they brought back these very famous EC letters. So yeah, I guess that part looks like an EC comic, if nothing else. I want to know if they're giving the artists the boards with the word balloons already pasted up on them. That would be real EC flavor right there. So yeah, it's horror stuff right here. Who's doing the second one? That's Peter Krause and Chris Condon. Interesting. The feeling was called terror. Well, there you go. And here's the Phil Hester. This is what got the comic through the door with me, right here. If you want to go with horror in the 21st century, you could do a whole lot worse than starting off with something by Phil Hester. My goodness, look at this. You want to talk about someone who has just gotten consistently better every year that he has worked in the comics industry. Phil Hester. Just one of my absolute favorites. Look at this. what's this last one here? This was the Brian Azzarello and Vlad Logosteve. I'm sure I butchered that. This looks fun. Yeah. Oh, and this is the cover scene right here. There you go. There's a little, I have to admit that they seem to have, I'd be surprised in this day and age if any experienced creators were unfamiliar with the EC brand, which was, a little bit schlocky, a little bit sensational, but still high-class creators doing good work. Now, I'll be interested to see as the Oni EC goes on, if they just hew to the horror stuff. I know they have a sci-fi book coming out, but I don't know if they have any war books, or certainly I would be very interested in checking out any attempt that they put towards doing something like the New Look books, like a psychoanalysis book or an Impact. My goodness. If they want to try to do a new run of Impact in the 21st century, yeah, that might be interesting. So, yeah, here is a list of in honor and tribute to those who inspired a legend that could never die, 1944 to 1956. And of course, as you probably already know, EC didn't actually die in 56. They just moved a couple inches to the right on the rack and put all their eggs in Mad Magazine, which turned out to be one of the most successful American magazines of the 20th century. Certainly one of the most influential. But the classic EC, what we think of as being, the EC that is historically legible, dating from the Elder Games, Bible picture stories, all the way up through the New Look. That was more or less 10 years with these gentlemen and a very few ladies as well. MC Max Gaines to William Gaines. Now, if they want to get the license to do a new Mad with top shelf creators, that might be interesting. I don't know if DC would quite be so enthusiastic, but that might be the best hope for a new Mad book, to try an anthology with top shelf creators working in humor. So, yeah, next issue has more of the Jason Aarons and Jorge Fornes, Tyler Cook, Matt Kenton, Klaus Janson. Well, there you go. I will probably get issue 2 because they're promising me a Klaus Janson story. And I will usually show up to see what old Klaus Janson is doing here. All right. I wish they gave us bigger pictures of all the variant covers, because they got some nice pieces here. I mean, they put some serious dosh into this relaunch. So if they're getting the sales they want, it doesn't surprise me, because they've invested a bit into this relaunch. Coming next month, a shocking new series presenting bizarre tales of time and space in the eternal EC tradition. And this right here, you got another murderer's row of excellent creators. Now, of course, historically speaking, the EC sci-fi books did not sell worth beans, and they were basically, amortized by the horror and the suspense stuff. So we'll see if history is any indication there. But, I mean, I don't like how they're doing it, but if they bring out the checkbook for the decent creators, I guess that's the only real proof in the pudding that we can judge it by. And one more. Well, let's pander. I'm still buying this Daredevil Wolverine World War III book, one of the only Marvel books that's been coming home with me the last couple months, because Joe Kelly writing Deadpool And I actually did the first issue of this on the TikTok, and I explained my rationale. I'm old school enough that not only will I usually show up for Deadpool, period. He's one of a handful of characters that I'll usually check out, but especially when Joe Kelly climbs back up on the horse for Deadpool, yeah, I will come back out for that. With Adam Kubert. And Adam Kubert, he has been on a roll since his last run of Wolverine, which was during the Krakoa period. Some of the only Krakoa stuff that I've really gotten into was the Adam Kubert material, where it seems like with Wolverine, he's just constantly trying to outdo himself. Interesting looking comic books that you just you wouldn't necessarily expect from someone who's in their fifth decade as a comic book professional, but still trying to hit it out of the park every time he steps up. And you gotta respect that, because this right here, well, there you go. I mean, yeah, clearly there's a reason why everyone's talking about Deadpool and Wolverine right now, but I mean, come on, this is interesting stuff. And it's maybe not getting, he's doing the classic 90s trick of making you turn the comic book over. Editors used to hate this. I'm sure they don't mind now that, it's a Kubert doing it, just like old times. But that's, man, just look at this. Look at this. Adam Kubert has not lost a step. Still acts like he's got something to lose. And you got to respect that. He really, I think he learned that from his dad. If he learned it from anyone, Joe was still putting it all out there on the mat every time he drew a page up to the very end. And I'm sort of starting to get the feeling that Adam's the one who takes over as old man in that regard. Because certainly when it comes to all of his layouts are just getting, oh man, look at this. This is wild stuff here. He's ripping the flesh off of Wolverine's arm. So he's just this tiny Wolverine with his metal skeleton arm and this big fountain, this geyser of solid blood. Man, look at that. This is the new Wolverine #1 coming out here. I'll flip through it in the store. Wolverine is a maybe for me. A lot of Wolverine stories can be kind of repetitive, but I generally do like the character, so we'll see. I was thinking about taking home that new NYX book because it's got the real Wolverine in it, Laura, but word on the street was not positive on that one. My goodness. Uh-oh. Looks like he's in a lot of pain, and when Wolverine is in a lot of pain, he loses it. So we get to see some real berserker hours. Yes, folks, that's what you want. That is what you want to see. Is it not, when you pick up Adam Kubert drawing Wolverine? You want to see the dude losing it. Yes. Man. And this is not something, color-wise, to have page after page that is just red, solid red, shades of red. There are only very specific circumstances when you're going to get away with something like that. And this works. This definitely works. I'm happy to see a new Dazzler #1, but, I don't need to spend more money on comic books, so it'll have to wow me in the store to come home with me. I don't know this Raphael Loureiro fellow, so it'll depend on whether or not he impresses me. Although I like this Terry Dodson piece, of course. Man, I'm so lost with Moon Knight. Moon Knight used to be one of my favorite characters, and every time I look, I guess it's because he got popular. Moon Knight got really popular, so they published a bunch of Moon Knight books. And now I look at him, and he looks nothing like the guy who I like from, Doug Mensch and, well, really, when you get down to it, Doug Mensch and Bill Sienkiewicz. But really, anything Doug Mensch and a few other people. But since they really have started hyping up all the mystical aspects of his background, I don't know. I like Moon Knight when he was the low rent Batman who was just hanging around his mansion having passive aggressive interactions with the blonde. That was for me like the best Moon Knight. And that's not the mode they're going for at all. They're really tamping down the oh man, look at this. This is weird. This is violent. This is bloody. This is great. This is fantastic, folks. My goodness. It looks like Deadpool is growing out of Wolverine's back. Now that is not something you're going to see in every comic book. Yep, this is fantastic stuff right here. And he pulls a rib off. He pulls a rib, one of Wolverine's adamantium ribs, which I guess is just connected by cartilage and ligament, and he uses that as a club. Oh man, look at this. And straight up, because this is just a book they're putting out to coincide with the movie, it's possible this may be running under a lot of people's radar, but straight up, you're not going to find very many comic books this month that look this good from anyone, starring any character. But this right here, bam, there you go. No idea what's going on. I need to go back and read issue 2. And it's Orion North, Koblish, Rosenberg, Sabino, Deadpool pie. That looks disturbing. Instead of Twinkies, we have pies made of Deadpool. That's something for you. Oh, Chasm. They're still going with the Chasm name. And they're bringing back the Cane to fight the Chasm, and this is so far from what people want with these characters. Do they even understand that? The end. Oh, so was this only a 3-issue jobber here? Yeah, okay, that was only 3 issues long. All right, that makes sense. So they're telling us to go buy the Wolverine Revenge. That's the Hickman and Capullo joint. Deadpool ongoing, which of course I'm already on board for. Deadpool Team Up. Hyping it as Rob Liefeld's last Deadpool adventure. Interesting. I don't know. I might not. I haven't been picking up the Rob Liefeld series they've done in the last few years, but I don't know if they're hyping it as the last one. They may grab me on that. Oh, man. Love these M&M's ads. Love them. Folks, you need to go buy M&M's and you need to tell them that you're buying M&M's because you support them advertising and supporting the comic book market. All right. Well, that was a fun week. First thing I'd like to do is to point you in the direction of the Comics Journal Yearbook, which also just came out this year, counting down the 10 best comic books of 2023. They don't do monthly or even semi-monthly Comics Journal anymore. It's the website. They do a yearbook, and they do they do usually a fat yearbook and a thin yearbook. And this is the thin yearbook that's just talking about comic books from last year, edited by Gary Groth, Austin English, Christy Valenti. And the reason I'm showing you this book is because it has, yes, you guessed it, a number of wonderful, qualified, famous comic book critics and comic book creators writing about their favorite comic books of the last year. But also, look who snuck in through the back door when they weren't paying attention. That's right. It's yours truly, writing about Daniel Close. I have not written anything. I don't think I've written anything long on the subject of Dan Close in my entire career. So this is a first for that. It was really fun. I think it turned out really good, thanks to the editors for really helping craft it there. It's a nice piece. I highly recommend it, and everything else. But especially, if you like me, if you want to support me, go buy it. I got lots of videos on this channel you can check out. I got daily comic book reviews on TikTok and Instagram. I have a podcast with Claire Napier. It's called Udder Madness. We talk about Top Cow comics. And we just put up a new bonus episode on the Patreon about the new Witchblade #1 that we looked at on this show last week. That's still available. If you are still catching up on that, you can go listen to us talk about the new Witchblade for, I think, an hour and a half. What else? I turned in a new piece for the Journal website. It's on Godzilla, and it should be up, hopefully. Cross your fingers, it'll be up next week. It turned out pretty well. I enjoyed having some time off, but I think I'm back in it to win it. Should hopefully be back to maybe not quite completely weekly, because weekly for last year kind of left me tired by December. But I'm getting back up to my fighting trim again. Is that it? Is there anything else I can think of? No, that's a lot. That's a whole lot of stuff out from me for you to go look at. So have a wonderful day.